You think you know what we're going to talk about.
And welcome back to Three Fates Decide.
It just sounds more dramatic that way.
All right, so this week we are going to be talking about...
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
One Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
I mean, we always celebrated Easter.
Harry Potter the Half-Blood Prince.
So we're going to do another free talk, freestyle thing, no planned discussion.
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
We're going to hit the main highlights.
That is the thing, like what we were saying back in that episode.
Quick recap.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Three Fates Decide. I am Liz, and I'm with my two co-hosts, Sam and Mary. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, well, when we post this episode, it's technically past graduation season, if you will, in the U.S., but hey, the stuff that we're going to talk about in this episode is always relevant and valuable to people who just graduated. So this time we are talking about advice that we all wished people had given us when we were either finishing school or pretty close to finishing school, like, you know, during our maybe third or fourth year of university studies. Gosh, you know, I don't know about you guys, but it amazes me how fast time flew, because it's like, you know, it almost feels like it was, you know, a month ago or whatever that I finished school, but in reality that's more years ago than I want to think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, I was actually just thinking about it because of a friend of mine like posted like, oh, you know, I see all these people congratulating the class of 2022. Meanwhile, like I graduated high school in this year, and so I've, you know, been out for this long, and it's like it makes you stop and think like, holy crap, like it's really been that obscenely large amount of numbers. I'm not going to say how long it's been, but it a lot longer than, you know, it should. Like like high school and college, like even college, like I'm sitting here and I'm like, holy crap, like it's been that long already? Like what is going on?
Okay, maybe I won't speak for you two, but I will openly admit that it has been more than 10, shall we say.
Yes, same here. Yes, for
It's been more
college.
than,
It's
yes,
been more
yes,
than 10 for college, yes.
Well,
yes.
I'll just flat out say it's my 20-year high school reunion was like 2 years ago. Was supposed to be 2 years ago. 20 years. I've been out of high school for 23 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, it should have been
College
my
for so long because I've gone back to college several times.
yeah. Yeah, I've done it twice. Yeah, my high school graduation anniversary should have been last year, but I mean, I guess like technically I could have. They did set up something for the 20th reunion, but I didn't opt to join in on that.
I don't
My
get
class,
invited.
my class was so bad, no one even signed up to do our 10-year high school reunion, so they canceled it. They didn't have enough people.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, my class sucks.
Oh, they
that's
don't
not
even invite me.
really.
I don't need to see
Well,
anybody, in all honesty.
well, technically what it is because I got my GED when I was 17, so I technically graduated a year early. So I did not quote unquote graduate with my graduating class. So I don't get invited to the reunions, which is perfectly fine. I wouldn't go to them anyway because I can't stand anybody I went to high school with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed much if they're still alive. As crass as that is to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole power of social media is you see people and you're like, wow, you really have not changed, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is like that is always disappointing.
Yeah.
But at any rate,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I guess like it is a. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward topic in a way, but then at the same time, it's slightly hard to know what precisely to start off with
Well,
because there's a lot of directions we could go with.
I mean, I guess I can kind of start it off with just based off of what Mary just said that she went to college multiple times. That's huge. That's something that I think a lot of college graduates need to understand that that is a possibility. That number one, you may go back for a master's or a doctorate or whatever, but may also be the fact that you find an interest in something else, or you need something else to help advance your you know, whatever, you may have to go back to school again and,
Right.
a couple of times. And that is okay. That's actually like the beauty of college, I think, is like it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still go back to school and take classes. There are times I still look and it's like I have interests in things, and not necessarily that I'm going to pursue a career in them, but because I have interests, I want to learn more about it. Go take a college class. Like that's something, I feel like people almost feel like you're a failure if you have to go back to school because and I remember when I graduated college, like I was sitting at, dinner after my ceremony and I'm like, that's it. Like I never have to sit in a classroom again. I'm done, blah, blah, blah. And like a year and a half later, I went back to school for medical, completely changed, what I went to school for. I went to school for TV and film production, which is like a ridiculously hard, industry to get into. I wasn't getting any leads. I always had an interest in health, and I decided to be more, you know, I know I could get a job in the medical field. And at this point, I had been a temp for over a year and I wanted to be more than just a temp. So I went back to school and thus started this whole whirlwind thing to where I am today. So it's okay if you have to go back, even if it's to change your career completely. And actually, I have a list of things that I wish I had known in my 20s. And one of the things is there's no, like, you're never too old for a career change, which kind of coincides with the if you have to go back to college, it's okay. So those are two. I'll start us off with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of continue on with that train of thought, it's like for me, my own experience has been like, was that I had graduated with a degree in economics, and then the reality set in that, well, I was having trouble being able to do that, get like a job really with that because what well, this does kind of segue slightly into another bit of thing I wish people told me was that like, well, this is gonna sound a bit of like, well, duh, but I didn't do enough research into the field of study that I was majoring in and really understanding what I need to do to qualify for certain careers within that field of interest, and what the steps were, what the process is, and that led to me having a very hard time getting a job later when I after I graduate, because it's like, well, I lack the sufficient knowledge and work experience to really get into things that were related to economics, especially if I wanted to actually do stuff that would, qualify me as being able to say, hey, I am an economist, whether it's actually working for a particular company where they, do stuff involving that for, analysis or whatever. So then I had to go back to school to study something else that will lead me to getting a job. And that's why I ended up going back to school again. And I got a degree in accounting, actually. And that accounting diploma is what kind of led me to the job that I've been working at for, oh my gosh, for almost 14 years. Yeah, so yeah, definitely make sure that, well, obviously if you already graduated, it's a bit late, but just know that, okay, if you can't get a job right away or relatively quickly after you graduated, just know that if you need to go back to school to learn something else, whether it's like what Sam was saying, based off of another interest of yours, or if you had to do something like somewhat more practical, like what I ended up doing, um, don't, don't sweat it. I mean, you just need to do what you need to do to progress and finally get a job. And I guess as like a related thing is that even if you do get a job relatively quickly, or even got a job offer before you actually get the diploma, which lucky people that happens to, don't be too surprised if you may not necessarily stick with that job, because you may discover that after a year or two working at that job, you may end up not liking it for whatever reason, or you just don't fit in, and you may need to do a little job hopping to figure out what you ultimately feel comfortable working in, and which employer likes you enough to want you to stick around. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And um one thing that you need to, when you're applying for like jobs and stuff like that, kind of going slightly off what you said, and Mary, you and I were talking about this. Even entry level positions, unfortunately, they say, they want 1 to 3 years experience, which I still think is like ridiculous that they do that, because that's not entry level, that's an established person. But what I found is, even if you don't meet all the criteria that the job is asking for, apply, because you never know, they may give you a call anyway. So, it, if it's something that you're interested in, that you want to do, apply anyway. If anything, you'll get some, maybe hopefully some interviews under your belt, because interviewing is terrifying if you've never done it before. And so, but definitely, never look at something and be like, oh, I don't have all of the qualifications, so I'm not gonna. No, 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 apply anyway, because you just never know. Sometimes businesses put, they have the qualifications, but they may want someone that they can mold into what they want, or so. And that happened with me. I got a position. I left the medical field for a while. I got a position at a corporate company in their marketing department, having zero marketing under my belt, and they were okay with that because they wanted to kind of mold me into what they wanted. So, basically you can figure anything out. Like, so never, don't, you know, cut your knees, just, cut yourself off at the knees when looking for jobs, because you just never know what could happen.
yeah, yeah. Although I do kind of agree with you what you were saying about how like it really honestly is ridiculous how like some job offerings, whether you're like using, Monster Track or whatever else job search things that are available now. It is ridiculous how like stuff that's labeled entry level are like asking for like these ridiculously, you know, ridiculous amounts of like work experience. It's like, well, if you're saying you're expecting 3 to 5 years, it's like, how is it, like you were saying, how is that
Yeah,
entry level? Because it's like, if I went to school for 4 years, then hypothetically speaking, where is that fifth year coming from?
right,
I
right.
mean, Yeah.
And most people, like, if you do an internship, it's for a couple of months, during a semester or during the summer and, in between semesters or whatever. And even still, it's hard to reach that what they want. So that always annoys me when I see that, when it strictly says like entry level and it's like experience 1 to 3 years or whatever, and it's like that's not entry level.
Right. And just so if any of you listening to this episode happens to be on the somewhat younger side, trust me, this nonsense was going on 10 plus years ago when we were,
Hmm.
college students about to graduate.
Yeah.
This is not something that just happened in the last 5 years. No, this has been going on for like over a decade now. This is not a new phenomenon. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, utterly ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, and again, related to this, I it wasn't until like I was in that situation where I was struggling to find a job, I didn't realize like how much hustling was involved with the job hunting thing because one thing that nobody ever really told me is, aside from like how it was necessary to be more aggressive in a way of making sure you have more work experience under your belt. Because if someone had told me that, when I was like in my freshman year or about to enter, I'm graduating high school, I would have probably done a lot more hustling,
Hmm.
and for internships and stuff, because this was like this was during that time where like it was still like a pretty good economy, and like it was like, oh, you could have like a degree in like philosophy and still get a job with like a Fortune 500 company. I mean, but then I had the misfortune of being one of those students that graduated during the beginning of that downturn that started happening, and now that's when they're asking for like, well, you must be, somebody who has like, 3 to 5 years experience, and you must be familiar with like, 10 different, statistical analytical software, or at least basic knowledge of these things to get this job. And it's like,
Hmm.
good grief. Good grief. Why? Why didn't anybody ever tell me that I had to do all that stuff to even get an interview, let alone a job offer? I mean, that is something I definitely wish people told me. They should have emphasized more that you need to like hustle more, way more
Yeah.
than, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I kind of wish that I had someone tell me even back when I was graduating high school, going to college or whatever. And I mean, I guess I kind of followed it on my own anyway, but like never let anyone tell you that like your dream job or anything like that is too big for you. And you know, you should definitely try and pursue that, and because at the end of the day it's your life. You're the one that has to live it. No one else is going to live your life. So no one else's opinion. While yes, you can take the people who are closest to you, their opinions into account. At the end of the day, it's your opinion that matters most. So if you have something, and I'm just saying this because for me, and I know we talked about this for like the New Year's Eve, uh, episode, and how I, wanted to pursue my acting career and stuff like that. That's something that I had always wanted since I was a kid. And I was constantly told, oh, how hard it is to make it. And, you probably won't make it. You should just make it a hobby. Why can't you just make it a hobby? You probably won't make any money doing blah, blah, blah. And it got to me to the point that I stopped trying. I didn't do it in high school because I didn't think, I thought, what's the point if I'm not even going to pursue it? And now here I am in my 30s kicking myself because I never even tried. So now, while working full time, I'm trying, to give
Right.
it a go because, you know, again, it's my life. And if, I don't want to, like, tomorrow's never promised, obviously, but like I don't want to leave this life with that, hanging over me like you didn't even try. You didn't even try for it. So never let anyone tell you not to even attempt. Because listen, there you may not, like our dreams are not for certain, but if you put in the work, if you really, really try, at least then if it doesn't work out, you can still be satisfied that you put in the effort for it. And that's at this point, that's where I am. It's like I want to at least attempt and try to see if I can do it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least I'm not going to regret it for the rest of my life that I didn't even try.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of funny. Like, speaking of the acting thing was, I was actually, um, I watched this YouTube video just the other day about three surprising celebrity backstories, and one of them actually was about Harrison Ford and about how he ended up, getting cast as Han Solo was like a complete surprise to him because by the time he got cast as Han Solo, he more or less kind of gave up on acting. Um, because until he ended up in Star Wars, all of his acting credits before that were, pretty negligible. I mean, they were credits, which, is something you can put on your CV, but they were never like obviously not main characters. I mean, they wouldn't even be like, oh, the leading man's best friend or the
Hmm.
sidekick or anything. It's just like another, it's like a glorified cameo, some of those like bits that he did. And that was when he did the carpentry thing. For people who are familiar with Harrison Ford's background, you may have be aware that like at one point he was a carpenter. That was how he paid his bills, and then that around that time that was when he ended up in Star Wars. So and if people actually looked it up, they'll realize that when that happened, he was already in his 30s. He was married. He had two kids, which was why he was doing carpentry work because the acting thing was not panning out at that
Hmm.
point. So it's like, well, okay, true, it was a little bit of, good luck and good fortune that happened, that he was able to get in on this audition that George Lucas was doing. It was still not, but it was still something that happened to him, a little bit later than, he probably would have thought, was when he would get a break. Because, especially like, if you studied in theater and you wanted to be an actor and, you're like in your early 20s, you're thinking, in the next 5 years, I'm gonna be like, the one starring as, whatever. But, sometimes it does take a long time for you to make it in whatever, uh, your dream job is if you're gonna wholeheartedly. Your dream job,
Hmm.
so sometimes like if you wholeheartedly really believe that, this is what you want to do, then you need to really go after it and not give up so easily because you just don't know. You just don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I guess like one other thing is like kind of again segue off of what I was just saying. Um One thing that I wish somebody had told me was that like you may have in your mind a certain plan, or you may have a certain perception of how things will be, but sometimes things just do not go to plan, and sometimes things just do not resolve or end up the way you expect it to, and that's also okay. Because sometimes, even though things turn out differently than what you expected, it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, because the job I'm currently at, I've still been working at, like I said, for 14 years almost now. In no way, shape, or form did I ever expect me to end up doing this job that I'm doing. But that's kind of how it happened. And, I'm okay with that. And it's not like the most glamorous, most exciting, attention grabbing thing, but, it's something that I'm okay with. And I get paid for my work, and what I'm getting paid for is, reasonable and covers my expenses, and I can save up some money to do fun stuff on the side. And there's always an opportunity for me to, whenever I want to, if I really want to quit and do something else, I could. I have that freedom to do that, you know. So again, even if your dream thing does not happen to you straight out of the gate, it may be that you have to do something else first to get there, or, you know, you just might find yourself doing something that you don't expect. And even if you do even if you do end up doing the thing that you were hoping for, it may come in a very circuitous way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's funny, like on this list, the number one thing is don't be afraid when reality doesn't match what you thought it would look like. And that's exactly like that's exactly it. Like and it's true, how many times did you picture what things were going to be like, and life is nowhere near what I had planned or pictured for myself at this point. And I'm sure the three of us can agree that,
Yep.
if we were writing the story of our life, this is not exactly what we thought was going to be at this point.
Nope. 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 Absolutely not.
you know, it is what it is. You learn, you live and learn. You learn every day, even as adults, you learn every single day. And, life throws curveballs all the time, whether it's work or just personal life or relationships or whatever. It's just never know what's gonna come tomorrow, and kind of have to go with the flow when it's things you can't control. It's what I've learned from my therapist,
Yeah.
at least, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, us saying that it completely gels with how they naturally are in terms of like how they like their personal philosophy of how to deal with life. And then for some people, that is a genuine struggle, because that's just not their personality to go with the flow necessarily, but they like to really think about things and plan around things. And if necessary, they'll think of contingency plans. But then if things don't follow, even the contingency plans, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a crisis. Well, the fact of the matter is that you could try your best to think of alternatives, but, unless you're some kind of, strategic genius or something where you can anticipate, multiple scenarios, then first off, that is a really handy skill, and that would probably get you hired in some places, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's just not always going to happen, the way you think it will. And again, that's okay. You just have to, once you've mentally accepted that reality, then you just move forward and think about and look at what are the avenues to proceed from there. You just need to resettle your mind and try to think rationally, like what can I do next? What should I do next? So you had that list. Anything on that list that we didn't already talk about?
Let's see. Let's go back. Don't focus so much on the future that you ignore what's in front of you. Well, that's, I guess we kind of tread on that. You can't always plan the future because you miss what's right in front of you sometimes. So, you know,
Yeah.
one thing, don't do future trips in relationships, especially if you're not like, solid.
Oh
That,
yeah.
that never ends up well.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't really have like any knowledge in terms of like people that I know in my, social circles, but I have heard so many horror stories about things like, people who are going to get married and obviously they have a honeymoon planned out and then the relationship goes bust and the wedding never happens. It's like
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
sad though, because
it is
at
sad.
that point you kind of hope that you're pretty solid if you're engaged to be married, but you know.
Yeah. But then it really says a lot about the relationship as well that um you were supposed to go to this, really serious, super serious status and something happens to make it implode.
Yeah.
And it's like I guess like for people in that situation it probably almost makes you feel like did I ever really know that person or did I ever really truly know myself? You know,
Which kind of brings me to the next thing is you're going to change, and like that's big, especially like in terms of relationships, because both of you are going to change. And those changes wind up pushing you further apart. It just means you're just, you may have been compatible initially, especially when you're young and in your 20s and you're both kind of like at that party stage, like, whatever. And then, like, as you get older and you get, quote unquote, more serious and whatever, it's like sometimes you start going off in different directions. And that's okay if you grow apart, and that's true for friends. Like a lot, there's a lot of people in my life that I've grown apart uh from, and that's okay. That's part of life. Just know, like, you're going to change. And I mean, I know me, I'm definitely a lot different than I was in my 20s, in my teens. And and yes, I still deal with certain demons that I dealt with back then, but it's like I'm definitely like a different person than I was back then. I mean, I'm sure you both could say the same thing.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just always know that you're going to change, and you're going to continue to change. I'm sure maybe in like 10 years, I'll look back and be like, "Pfft, know what the heck I was even talking about in my 30s." Like,
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
Hell, I'm 40 and I still don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
See, because we keep learning. That's that part. We keep learning. At which
Yeah.
nobody is good at life. We're all learning. Which is
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm surprised I even survive life at this point.
Hmm.
you made it. You're making it, I should say. You're
I was
still.
like, you should say I'm not sure I've made it yet.
Oh,
Well, yeah. I mean, at least you haven't
that's
given
okay.
up on stuff, Yeah.
I know for me, like turning 30 was huge. And I think it was because I compared myself to other people who, either were younger than me or the same age as me. I compared myself to my parents, like, and I just felt like I was so far behind. because I was in the exact same spot that I was when I turned 20, except I was a college graduate, I had a job and, you know, all that.
Mhm.
Um, but in everything else, especially more personal relationship wise and whatever, what again, kind of going back to reality is not what you pictured. I always hoped that being kind of like my parents, by the time I had hit 30, I would at least be married or, have a kid or whatever. And I turned 30 and I had nothing. And even now, like, I just turned 35 a few weeks ago, and I finally got to the point that it's like I need to start thinking about myself and not, about anything else. So like I've made a plan for myself that like I'm giving myself up to like, you know, until by the time I'm like 37, if I don't have a significant other that I have like, a very good relationship, a solid relationship with, I'm gonna, I want a child. I'm gonna make sure I have a child, one way or the other, even if it's, going and getting artificially inseminated or, whatever it is, because like that's something that I want. I want a kid. And good thing is this day and age, you don't need a dude to have a kid. So,
You want the kid till you actually have the kid. Trust me, you don't
well,
want the kid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
but
I just pray your child, Sam, will not be anything like mine. Because if it's anything like mine, you're going to be like, God damn it, she was right.
I'm gonna call you up and be like, Mary.
Yes. And I'll be like, Sam, I told you. I mean, do not get me wrong. I love my daughter to pieces. I love her to bits. She honestly is the best thing that ever happened to me. But at the same time, I watched a TikTok on Kevin Hart doing his stand up routine, and he said, "You never realize until you have children how much children will push your buttons till you want to physically fight them." And he's like, "You cannot physically fight a child." I'm like, my dude is right on this. I'm like, there are days when I'm just like, just today, I wanted to wrap my hands around her pretty little, scrawny little, pretty little neck and wring it. And I'm like, I can't do that.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
oh I mean, I know it's not easy. I mean, I just know from my two nephews how exhausting it can be. But, you know,
yes.
but it's I've gotten to the point I'm obviously not going I may not get or my reality is not what I pictured, but if it's something that I still truly want, I'm giving myself a timeline to get what I want,
Well,
So,
I said the same thing, Sam. I said if I hadn't had a kid by the time I was 35, I was getting my tubes tied. I wasn't going to have one. And lo and behold, I got pregnant at 34.
and then tied your tubes. So there you go.
Yes, I tied my tubes 4 months after she was born. It's like,
So see, you
one
kind
is
of
enough.
hit your goal.
It was a goal. So I will never discourage anybody from having a kid. I'm just like, really stop and think because it is. I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't realize it was going to be this hard.
In a few
Yeah.
years, when I have a kid, we'll do a comparison.
Yeah, and I'm praying that your children will not be anything like mine is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I'm only an aunt. I've obviously never been a mom, but I just felt like from all this time I spent, helping to babysit my nieces over the years, it became very, very clear to me. Sorry, it became very, very clear to me that, after all that time I was babysitting my nieces, that it really is very hard and to raise kids, especially because the two of them happen to be like not even 2 years apart from each other.
Mhm.
And I knew very early on from, spending time with them and helping to watch them, is that if I was to ever have kids, I would totally want to have a partner involved, because I can't imagine how hard it is to take care of, a kid by yourself. I mean, I know there are many, many moms and in some cases dads that do it, and they are honestly amazing people, very amazing people. But it's like, we are a family of, we're like a nuclear family, I guess, of like 7 people, including the 2 nieces. And it's like all 5 of us adults in various ways helped raise these 2 kids for the last 20 years. So it's like, if this is what it takes to raise 2 kids in like the, most enriched, way possible, then number one, again, kudos to the single parents out there that genuinely do it almost entirely by themselves. I mean, obviously not counting, maybe babysitters that you had to hire, obviously, but, you know, actively spending a lot of time and effort, you know, as well as the money, obviously, but all that work to try to help this baby become a functioning, or at least you're hoping will be a functioning, adult that can, you know, be able to survive life more or less on, as well, is not easy. And I already decided for myself that if I ever did have kids, that like I do want a partner involved. I mean, again, I have nothing but the highest respect for all of you out there who are single parents, but I just know for me, that's just how I feel about like how I would do things for myself if I did have a kid. But you know, that's not for everybody, and I totally respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if I could, I'm sorry, they lied to you when they lie when they say that the newborn stage is the hardest stage. It's not. Yeah, it kind of sucks to have to lose some sleep, but it is not the hardest stage at all.
No, because they don't move.
That's the best stage
Yeah,
because you
they
get to
don't. They
cuddle
don't
them.
move.
Okay, so they cry and they want to eat a lot and all the time. And yes, you do lose some sleep, but I'm telling you, that's still the best stage. I slept more when she was an infant and a newborn than I did when she was like 2.
Oh boy, children.
Oh,
Um,
gotta love them though,
yes.
especially when I should say you gotta love your own. You don't gotta love anybody else's, but you gotta love your own.
I mean, I adore my nephews, but uh, I know that they're not easy at all. But let's see what else we got here. You don't need to know what you want. I think we kind of covered. Because sometimes you think you want something and then you realize it's not exactly what you thought, and
Oh
you can
yeah. Yeah.
you can figure anything out in today's age. There, you can always figure something out. Google, YouTube, someone who's been through whatever, like you can find a resource to figure out anything. I mean, Google magic, YouTube magic, it's real. It's real. It's okay that you're single, which kind of went into a little bit. And then it's a lot of the other things are just about other people. Communication obviously is very, very important, and that's true for personal relationships and work. Can't tell you how many times, like, first of all, email or text, you cannot read emotion. Repeat that to yourself a million times, because I can't tell you how many times I would receive an email from my boss or a text message from someone, and I would read it like they're like really ticked off at me, and they weren't. So just always remember that. That's the one bad thing about this day and age, is because everything is electronic and like texting and whatever. So like, and if you're texting someone or emailing something, put something in there to let them know kind of like that you're cool so that it doesn't cause an issue. But I think that's a huge part of communication these days, is because a lot of it is through text, like typing. You have to almost like establish what the emotion is before things like blow up. I've seen so many fights over that crap. Stupid. Other people's baggage is theirs to deal with. It's not you. You can be supportive, but you don't have to help with the load. That's not on you. You know, you need to be independent, not codependent, or have someone be codependent on you, because that's just asking for a mess. Don't try to change people. We talked about how you are going to change, the other person is going to change, but there's certain things that will never change. If you're in a situation where you're like, well, I can change them, the answer is always
No,
going
you
to be
can't.
no, you cannot.
Nope. Nope.
If that ever crosses your mind, but I can change them,
Nope.
the next thing should be, nope, no, I can't. Nope, time to get out.
No.
Time to leave.
No. Huge red flags.
Yeah, nope, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. You will never change anybody. They have to change on their own.
Right.
How it is.
Yeah, and
Uh,
as much as I'm not a Halsey fan, or Halsey, or I'm not really sure how to pronounce her name, the singer, her mom gave her some advice after she had a breakup with a guy, and this is really good advice, and everybody needs to hear this on relationships. Butterflies are bad. You should not be nervous to meet somebody. You should not be nervous. Are they going to be nice to me? Are they going to are when I wear this, are they going to compliment me, but the next day they're going to be mad at me for something?
mhm,
Your butterflies are your first red flag that the relationship is not right.
right. Yeah,
So,
not the initial butterflies that you get like when like you feel something, like that's a whole different type of butterfly.
right, we're talking about like, yeah,
Nervous ones.
everybody gets a little nervous on a first date. Everybody does. But
Absolutely.
once you meet that person, you should not still be having butterflies. If you're still having butterflies after you've met this person and you've talked to this person for a while and you still get butterflies, that's not a good sign. That's your body saying, "Hey, something's up. Something's wrong."
That is good advice. I shall remember that.
Yes. I mean, not like you said, it's not the initial butterflies. Like, everybody's nervous when you first go on a first date and the initial meeting, but after that, they really should die down. And if
Yeah.
they ain't dying down, then there might be something going on. Your body, your brain is saying, "Hey, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here.
Yeah.
Why am I nervous around him all the time? I
Get
shouldn't be
out.
nervous around him. I'm comfortable."
Get out while you can.
Yes.
Let's see. Acknowledge that this moment won't last forever, even if it feels like it will. That is great advice that I wish I had, because there were so many times that I thought that whatever I was going through is never going to end. And it's like, you have to remember, like, eventually everything is going to pass. Like, whatever horrible thing is going on, like, everything is going to pass. Things will always get better. I thought that was a good one.
Yep.
You don't need to settle. That applies to so many things in life. Career, relationship, you know, life choices. You never have to settle. Never settle for less than what you feel you want or deserve. Never have anyone tell you you should settle. It doesn't matter if you don't get married until you're 50. Who cares? That's how long it takes for you to find somebody, or if you never get married, okay? Never. And it's so funny. I was actually talking to my friend about this, because it's been a while since I've been in a relationship, and I was like, maybe I'm just too picky. And she's like, you're not picky, you have standards. You don't want to settle. It's like, don't be ashamed of having standards. She's like, why would you want to set yourself up for another failure? Like, well, that's actually very true. Thank you for making me feel better about myself. Give yourself for past screw ups. This is something that I'm still dealing with even today. Like, I talked to my therapist about it, some of my demons and some of the things from my past and things that I did wrong or whatever. Yeah, I like you really do. You have to forgive yourself, else you're never going to move forward. Forgive others, I mean, in certain aspects. Doesn't mean you forget, doesn't mean that you will be best friends with that person, but sometimes the best thing is to forgive and let go of whatever so that you can move on with your life. And again, it's something that I'm still dealing with. I'm dealing with a lot of childhood traumas that I didn't realize affected my life until I started going to therapy and like literally going through each and every single trauma and like breaking it down and like kind of teaching myself how to, all right, like I said it out loud, it's gone. I'll never forget it. It's a lesson learned from whatever, but it's time to let it go. So definitely forgive yourself, forgive, in that aspect. But find gratitude in the good, the bad, and the straight up ugly. And I definitely agree with that because, again, as I just said, everything's a lesson in life, even the horrific, ugly stuff that, is just trauma. At the end of the day, you almost have to have some sort of gratitude for it because it did make you into the person that you are. I'm stronger now, even though sometimes I still feel weak. I'm stronger now because of the traumas that I went through and the lessons that I learned through those traumas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think I hope people know that. And I'm sorry if there's any men on here, but I feel like men need to learn that more than women. I mean, women too, but like I feel like men find that they're weak if they have to ask for help. I don't know why. Like it just
It was beat into them, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally, by society and their parents, that men should not show emotions, men cannot be seen as weak, men have to be strong, men have no emotions, men don't cry, all this and all that. We're slowly getting rid of that mindset, but at the same time, there's still so many out there that are stuck in that mindset.
yeah. And it's sad, and you're right. And like I have noticed more male public figures have come out and discussed, their vulnerabilities and how they ask for help and stuff like that. And I think that's a great thing. Like we need to make that the norm. Like you don't have to be some macho guy that nothing like you're human. Something's going to bother you. Something's going to affect you. Something's going to be a trigger, and it's okay. Like it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, so yeah. That's a big one. Never be afraid. Like you're not weak if you need help. And this is in any regard. And not necessarily that you need to go to a professional person for help. A friend, a significant other, your parents, whoever. If you need help, ask. Because I doubt the people in your life would turn you away. And if they would, then they're not meant to be there because they're not a good support system. I feel like I need to write a book. And number 20 was find your tribe, which I guess kind of goes into what I just said. Whether it's your family, your friends, whoever, find those people that will support you through everything and will be there for you through everything. I had a lot of issues with friends growing up. And I didn't meet my current best friends. I met them when I was 15. And they were from a different town. I met them because I worked at a summer camp and they worked at the summer camp too. That's how we became friends. And now we're still best friends to this day. And they showed me, because I had, like I said, very toxic relationships with friends. Because I was so vulnerable, people felt that they could kind of walk all over me. And these girls taught me how a friend is supposed to be. We don't talk every day. In fact, I don't even see them a lot, even though we live in the next town from each other, but like with our busy schedules and everything, one's married with a baby. They're twin sisters. One's married with a baby and stuff like that. But like when I need them, I know that if I reach out to them, they'll drop whatever they are doing, and if they can. Obviously, the one's not going to drop her child. Sorry, I can't take care of you. Have to go help Sam. But I know that if I needed them, they would come, and same thing. My family, my siblings, like my mom, if I needed them, they would be there, and vice versa. So definitely make sure you find those people. And sometimes it does take time to find them. And that's okay. Not everyone, stays friends with the kids that you grew up with. And that's okay. You're allowed. And that's my TED Talk.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the three fates decide.